I have raised over $100 million from my startups, other people's startups, as well as startup funds. But in the beginning, I really was pretty bad at pitching, bad at pitch decks, and I got rejected about 99% of the time until I started to learn the techniques that help me get better and better at raising funding. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. I sat down over the weekend and I thought to myself, if I could put it all into some type of tool, framework, system to help all of you out understand how to get good at pitching, how to make good pitch decks, what would I do? And I came up with this tool called the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle condenses and encapsulates all my years of experience raising funding and watching other startups and founders be successful at their own fundraising at startups.com. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. If we met before, welcome back to my channel. Skip to the good part of the video using the chapter markers. If we haven't met, I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits, and that's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use YouTube videos like this and this channel to help founders, especially early stage founders raising capital, avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier for you. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. If you haven't heard about us yet, head on over to the website, easy URL to remember, check out all the free resources. If you're already part of Startups.com, thank you so much for your support and joining the community. While everyone's here, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe, very helpful. Let me know what you think. Appreciate all the feedback that I get all the time. Helps me improve this channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the Golden Triangle. There are 3 principles that we need to look at to lay the foundation for understanding the Golden Triangle. The first is the Golden Rule, and you might be familiar with the original Golden Rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Highly recommend living by the Golden Rule. But there's a different Golden Rule in business, and it says the one with the gold makes the rules. You might have heard this one before as well, but I'm adding until you build a gold mine. The one with the gold makes the rules until you, as the founder, build a gold mine. Because investors will start off with the gold, but then they want to invest in gold mines and they want more gold. That's where the greed and FOMO set in. And if you represent that gold mine, you're going to have a much easier time raising funding. So never take power dynamics for granted ever. This is a huge mistake. When someone has the gold, they're the ones making the rules. Therefore, the power dynamic is on their side. When you have the gold mine, the power dynamic is on your side. Recognizing and acknowledging power dynamics is a fundamental part of the founder journey when you're fundraising. Investors understand the power is on their side and they want you to think that you need them more than they need you. But the truth is, it's the opposite, especially if you have a gold mine. Because investors need to fund founders to make more money, which is their objective. So technically, they need you more than you need them. Look at a VC. A general partner or managing partner has LPs. The LPs have the power dynamic on their side. They're actually the general partner's boss. They give the GP money and say, put it to work. And if they don't generate a return, the LPs say, I'm not giving you more money, or what happened? What are you doing with my money? So the GP or the managing partner needs to find deals, and they need you more than you need them. This also includes scouts and associates and analysts. They need to find deals out there and bring them up to their situation where they've got a power dynamic going on, where they want to become a partner or get recognized, become an associate, and they need you to make them look good. So many founders just complain about the power dynamics and they bash the investors and make it an us versus them, which is natural, and I get it. When someone has power and you feel powerless, you'll attack the people with the power at the top of the pyramid or the food chain. But instead of belly aching about it and spending all that mental energy falling into a victim mentality and risking your mental health at the same time, you want to work on changing the power dynamic. Build your gold mine so you can reverse the tables and move into a position of strength when you're presenting to investors. And that's where I want you to be. And that's what we're talking about on this channel all the time. By the way, this Golden Triangle is compatible with Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. He has a great TED Talk about how we communicate and why this Golden Circle model that he created is so important. You always want to start with why. He wrote a book by the same name. I encourage you to go read it and learn how to pitch, because I did. It was incredibly impactful. One of the most important business books that you're going to read when I'm presenting with investors, whether I'm on Zoom or I'm in a live pitch competition or I'm on stage. Just make sure you start with the Golden Triangle first and then the Golden Circle, because when you are pitching people live, it's different. When you need to make an emotional connection with people in an audience or when you're in front of an investor. When you send your pitch deck, you don't have the ability to have a voiceover and give an inspiring speech. At the same time, many founders read the book and say, I'm going to start with why in my pitch deck, and they start with some story, or they start with something, they try to be clever and they lose the investor. It works great when it does. When it doesn't, it's horrible, and it doesn't work most of the time. Instead of trying to be clever with your pitch deck, you want to be clear and concise. And that's what the golden triangle is all about, which I'm going to show you. The second principle comes to us from Paul Graham. He's famous for being the founder of YC and writing these really great essays. I suggest you go check it out. A lot to learn. That's what I did when I was first starting, and that's how I got an interview down at Y Combinator, because I put all the principles in practice. He says in his essay how to convince investors. So here's the recipe for impressing investors when you're not already good at seeming formidable. Being formidable is one of the first things you want to work on. You got traction, you're coming across really great, you got past VC experience, or you've done an exit. That's going to help you. But most of the time, 99% of the time, that's not the case. Only 1% of founders can go off of just their reputation or having past VC experience and raise capital without having to do other things to present to investors. And this list starts off like this. First, make something worth investing in. Y Combinator always says make something people love. And the more people that love it, the more investable it is. Next, he says, understand why it's worth investing in. Founders miss this all the time. They don't look from an investor's perspective and say, what do I need to do to make something worth investing in? And why is it worth investing in? For example, your total addressable market. If it's too small, it's not worth investing in from the investor's perspective. A lot of founders have a small TAM and they don't understand why an investor wouldn't consider their investment. At startups.com, I saw an email from an investor to a founder. We're sending out hundreds of emails every day for founders, and it said, we really like the idea. We think it's great. You have a good team, but we don't see the market being big enough to reach our goals, and that's too bad. Even if they like it, even if they think it's going to make money, if it's not big enough, it's not answering the question why that investor should invest. Think about their why. They're going to start with why. Why should I invest in you? What makes you different? Why am I going to be able to pitch this to the rest of my committee? And why are they going to bite into it? And the last thing is explain that clearly to investors. Clarity. I'm going to bring up this word so many times. Be clear and concise versus being clever. Concise, you make sure that you're not going to lose their interest. Too many founders try to be clever with their pitch decks and their pitches, and they lose the investor. They tell a joke, it falls flat, nobody shares the same sense of humor, nobody's interested. Don't create that friction. Be clear and get right to a yes or no, or let's take the next steps. Immediately, that should be your goal, and you're going to use the golden triangle to help you out. The third principle comes from Kurt Lewin. When I ran an edtech company, I had professors, and we were learning about master's and doctorate degrees in organization development, and one of my professors taught me Kurt Lewin and a lot of his theories, and he taught me something called field theory. And Kurt Lewin proposed with field theory that an individual's behavior results from their interaction with their psychological environment or life space. I want you to think about your life space. You have a psychological environment that affects you, but so does the investor. They have their life space. I've been talking about it all through this video. They may have LPs in their life space, their job, their performance, the goals that they want to achieve. Maybe it's their own money that they're investing in. They have their own investment thesis that affects their life space. And Kurt Lewin said there are always forces that apply pressure, that apply different dynamics, such as those power dynamics. He or she who has the gold makes the rules. That's a force that affects your life space. So you want to be thinking about this. In any situation where you're pitching investors or raising funding, there's you, the founder, there's them, the investor, and then there's the context in which your startup exists. And this is another area that founders completely ignore, especially when it comes to competition. Let's use what's going on currently in the startup ecosystem as an example. Right now, AI has sucked all the oxygen out of the room. The context was these AI companies were starting to get lots of investment, and the investor said, I need my money in AI. If the general partners, those funds, they weren't chasing AI deals, then they would look dumb. They're going to miss out on potentially the next trillion-dollar company. The one who wins this race, this is the context right now, the one who wins the AI race is basically not going to make some money. They're going to make all the money. And there's only room for 2 or 3 companies to come out of this. Everything else is going to die, or they're going to get acquired. There's going to be consolidation. That's the context that we're in. That's why so many founders are pitching AI companies right now, and rightfully so. It's easier to build with AI, and it's got the investor's attention. That's the context. But the context is starting to shift, and we're going to see this happen over the next year or so because so many founders are jamming up the AI space. There is so much competition. Evaluations are going high. It's so much harder for new founders, smaller founders to get in there and compete for that attention. Based on that context, you may have a fantastic AI startup that would have raised all the money 2 years ago, but right now the context has changed, and that force has applied a different dynamic to the investor, and that force should be factored in to how you manage your startup as well as you raise. Ignoring the competition and what's happening with startups at large across the entire ecosystem, economically speaking, as well as culturally, you are going to miss out on an opportunity. You're going to be ignorant of it, and it's just going to pass you by, and you're going to have a very difficult time raising funding. Don't ignore the contextual signals like the economy or competition to your detriment. Now that we got those foundational principles out of the way, let's look at the golden triangle. There are 3 parts to the golden triangle. The first is perception. This is part of the golden triangle that you live in as the founder. That's you. You have your own perceptions. You perceive your startup and the world through your lens. Important to acknowledge and accept that. Next is perspective. This is where the investor is in the golden triangle right here. They have a specific perspective on your startup, a specific perspective based on their investment thesis, and that's going to determine how they manage themselves and they interact with you while you're raising funds. The final part of the golden triangle is reality. Reality is comprised of several brutal truths. That's what we're talking about here. When you get a reality check, it's a brutal truth hitting you right between the eyes. And founders, I understand, don't enjoy it, but neither do investors. The brutal truth could be they invested in the wrong thing or the market's turning against them. They're not going to be making their money. So everybody's got reality imposing its force on your life space. Now think of this like a mountain with a gold mine inside of it. A gold mine that you have to climb to make sure that it can make money and that investors are going to make money. Think about this for a moment. Just look at it like your gold mine, but it's a mountain. What happens is founders spend way too much time trying to drag an investor and change their perspective to meet their perception. Founders often think my perception is reality, but that's your cognitive bias. That's you trapped in your own echo chamber, in your own mind, tunnel vision, not seeing the forest for the trees. I never recommend trying to convince an investor. Just find out if they share the same perspective as you and get in or get out. Just move along quickly. And most people think that it's a matter of trying to figure out how to meet halfway. Your perception of what's going on and the investor's perspective, and once you do meet halfway, you can find this little sweet spot where the checks get written. And I fully agree, this is where checks get written all the time, but there has to be a better way, and that's what the golden triangle does. You want to climb this mountain and make sure that you're making your perception into reality. And you do that by getting traction. Work on getting all those signals. Maybe you're generating revenue. There are many other ways to develop traction. Most importantly, what are the signs? What are the metrics that you're seeing out of user behavior that they are starting to make a purchasing decision? They see value. What triggers that? That's the type of traction that you want to show to investors. As you develop that traction, investors' perspective will start to change and they will start to believe in you. It's all about belief. Do they believe that you can do what it takes to create a successful startup, go unicorn and make them back all their money and more? No founder or investor can ever predict the future and guarantee success and know that it's going to happen beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's the reason there needs to be a leap of faith, and the investor themselves has to climb this mountain of a gold mine with their belief. And at the top, as those two come together, you'll see something amazing. Instead of this distance, because the more funding you need, the more distance there is at the bottom of this mountain of your gold mine, it's going to start to close slowly but surely. And when the two get close enough, that's where that magic moment happens and you start to get your investment dollars. So just remember, in every funding situation, there's going to be your perception, their perspective, and the reality filled with all the brutal truths. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to be using this framework every time I look at a pitch deck, and I'm going to explain it to you because this is what naturally I did. This is what naturally investors do. They look at the pitch deck and they say, there's a perception here that the founder has. They're seeing a problem. They're seeing a market a specific way, but I have my perspective as an investor. I have my own investment thesis, which creates that type of perspective. And there's the reality. Is this going to become reality or not? Do I see all the signals to de-risk the investment enough for me to get to the point where I want to write a check? One more time, say it with me. There's perception, perspective, and reality. Perception, perspective, reality. Those three words should echo in your mind over and over again when you're building your startup, you're building your pitch decks, and you're pitching to investors when you're seeking funding. Let's look at some more practical applications here. Reviewing your pitch deck, and I'm going to be using this to review your pitch decks. You've been warned. What do I perceive? What are my assumptions? You have to be asking that because your pitch deck is filled with assumptions that it's going to become a unicorn. And like I say all the time, every founder has a better than 0% chance of becoming a unicorn and raising unicorn-based funding. That's my perspective. Your perception is how you're going to go to market, how you are going to figure out to get that traction, your business model, what your competition is going to do. These are all assumptions that you want to be proving out. After that, take the investor's perspective. Step back from your pitch deck and say, okay, I'm not me as the founder. I'm the investor. What would I need to see? How would I view this pitch deck? How would I react? And if you can't step out of yourself, that's a little more difficult. Find somebody to do it for you. That's what we do at startups.com. That's what I'm here for. Find a stranger or find someone who will give you the brutal truth, the reality of it. Step back and say, look at my pitch deck. Do you understand? What does this say to you? And don't explain it to them. Just say nothing and wait for their response. And after you've gathered all that data, ask yourself, what's the reality here? What's the brutal truth? There's you, there's the investor, and then there's context. Between all three, you can say, the reality is I need more traction to get funded. The reality is this competitor is taking up all the mind share and is dominating the story right now. Maybe the reality you encounter is I don't want a VC investor. I don't want to be on that hamster wheel trying to build a unicorn. The reality is I need another type of investor. I'm going to bootstrap or seed strap. And after you get those brutal truths, it's time to get to work. You are going to de-risk the reality. Go get that traction. As brutal as it is, investors will give you the reality of their perspective of how much traction they need to perceive themselves for that perspective, for the investment thesis, to consider writing you a check. You have to de-risk that perspective of all the risks that they see. You might not agree, but you have to accept their investment thesis. You have to accept it, and that's something that you can work on. So many founders get all worked up, and they get upset, and they get angry. Remember, rejection is going to be your friend. I've been rejected so many times that when an investor says, no, it's a pass, doesn't bother me anymore. I go, okay, I'm moving on. I'll get some feedback, and I'll say, okay, it will be better the next time. That's all I can do. That is what I'm in control of. But if you waste all that mental energy thinking about that investor rejection as a doom loop, a broken record in your head, you are not going to help yourself with the next investor presentation. All you have to do is get to a yes. And I know that's easier said than done, but you're going to help your case by learning clear and concise communication. That's what these YouTube videos are for, my channel's for, what we do at startups.com. We don't want to be the gatekeepers of your idea. As I said, every founder, better than 0% chance. I want to give you the best shot to optimize your opportunity to communicate that with investors and have them consider it, not have them scared or confused or basically bored out of their minds and not give you that opportunity that you deserve. So watch the next video that I put on the screen for you to learn. It's going to be relevant to you. And then I've got a pitch deck playlist where I go through all the pitch decks, and you're going to see these new videos where I'm going to be talking from the perspective of CFXO, Chief Funding Execution Officer, and use the golden triangle to say, let's look at your pitch deck. Let's look at your perception. Let's look at the investor's perspective. And what's the reality? What's the brutal truth we all can learn from? Let me know what you think. Thanks for hanging out with me in this video. I'll see you in the next one.